Alright, so welcome back to this data fetching tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at a lot of things, including what's recommended by Next.js on how to fetch data on your app. Hello guys, I'm Oliver. I'll be going over this tutorial. If you're new to the channel, make sure you check my other tutorial as well. It's on my YouTube. For this tutorial, all the links and resources will be down below. So GitHub and all the other easy to access resources. I also have a Discord server. So if you are interested in talking to all the other students as well, go ahead and join the Discord server as well. So again, welcome back. I hope you guys saw my other tutorial on the Next.js crash course. I'm doing like a series right now. This is, I believe, the fourth video of the series, and we are doing the data fetching. Before that, we covered a lot of different concepts building up to this place right now. So I'm super excited to walk you guys through this tutorial because it is going to be really jam-packed with a lot of information. So first thing first, Next.js 13.4 and above, they change how we fetch data. Before we used to do a lot of like get server side, but right now we don't do that. They kind of deprecated that part. We only data fetch using async await function, and making it really simple. Like let's go to the old method and see, get static props, server side. So these are like the old method and not supported in a new app router, which is awesome because it basically deletes the confusion. So right now it's very easy to data fetch. So let's look at what is recommended by Next.js. Okay, so the first thing, I'm on the dock right now, and you can see the app router introduces a new simplified data fetching system built on React and the web platform. So what that means is React already gives you a lot of cool data fetching features. Next.js kind of enhanced that feature. And we're going to talk about a lot of those features too. So I'm super excited. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up. And some of the fundamentals, and this is like a recommendation on this page. So what does Next.js want you to do? So when you want to fetch a data from a server, what you should be doing? The first thing is you should be fetching data on the server using server component. Now, for those who doesn't know this, make sure you check out my previous videos. I cover in depth on everything about server component, client component, and all the rendering stuff. So this is that lecture. I'll link it down below somewhere. So that's a good thing, right? So Next.js wants you to fetch data on the server. Why is that? Now, when you click on this, you're gonna see a lot of cool explanation. I think they kind of covers a lot of ground here. So couple of benefits are it gives you direct access to the backend data resources. So if you're fetching data on the server component, it's happening on the backend. So it's very close to your backend database as well. So it's very optimized and faster way to do the database fetching, and keep your application more secure by preventing sensitive information on the server and not on the client, which is good point to know. Fetch data and render at the same time. So most of the server component basically render on the server. So if you are fetching the data on the server component, that is happening on the server as well. So it's happening on the same environment, which reduces both back and forth communication between client and server. And it's really cool benefit as well. So perform multiple data fetches with a single round trip instead of going to the client and then back to the backend server. So it's very straightforward. Reduces client server waterfall, the back and forth waterfall, spills. So optimize a lot of features, and depending on the region, data fetching can also happen closer to you. Since it's happening on the server component and it's happening on the server, it can pinpoint some close by region on a database, the API to fetch from. So it's a lot faster. So everything is basically happening on the server, and because you're data fetching on the server component, is a lot faster. Now, I know some people are talking, if you're coming from React is a client-sided rendered, and everything happened on the client. And if you're fetching data, it's happening on the client as well. It's like an old React I'm talking about. And if you're used to that, you notice one thing. And sometimes on the app, you might want to fetch data on the client side. That means when you have a directive in your page, like use client, is happening. It's client center, like client render is happening in here. So it's a client sided. So this page is being rendered on the client, not the server. So when this happens, Next.js recommend you something as well, like what to do, how to fetch data if you're using something called a client. So here's a recommended thing. You want to use a third-party library such as SWR or a React query with client components. In the future, it'd also be possible to fetch data in client component using React hooks, use hooks. So they're gonna be probably enhance this later on a later version. But for now, they want you to use SWR or React query. This is a little bit of separate topic than what we're trying to discuss here. So I will probably do a video on this, React query and SWR, and probably compare how to fetch data between these two. But just so you know, Next.js wants you to fetch data on a server component, not a client component. So you delete this directive and you have a server component. But if you want to have a client, it's this too. So that's good to know, right? So let's start doing that. Let's fetch some data and yeah, start. There's a lot of stuff to know when fetching the data. You're going to be using Fetch API. So something to think about when doing that is React use Fetch API, like JavaScript. It's like a web API basically. It's available to you. But what does Next.js use? Next.js basically extend from the React. So React have a fetch. They kind of updated the regular fetch to a React version of it. And Next.js updated React version of the fetch with a couple of Next.js options, which is really cool. And I'm like really excited to show you this because it optimizes your app in big ways. So when you're doing any kind of data fetching, you want to be using Fetch API. The new data fetching system is built on top of the native Fetch API web API, and it's extend from the React basically. So make use of async await in server component. React extend Fetch API to provide automatic request deduping. I'm going to explain this in a minute. Just hold on to that thought. Next.js extend the fetch option to object to allow each request to set its own caching and revalidating rule. This is pretty cool. So I'm going to go over this in a minute. Just give me a second. So we have the basic knowledge on what to do. Let's start fetching some data. The data I'm going to fetch is going to be a dog API. I think they have like a random images that I really like. It's going to show you some really cool feature on Next.js. So this fetch API is going to, this is a doc.co/dog/API dash API. And this is a link. So this should be generating new dog images every time you fetch it. So we're going to be using that, right? So right now you click, you fetch every time you get a new dog. So what happened when I do it on Next.js, right? So let's see if it's okay, it's good. So how to fetch data in Next.js? Let's create a const get dogs data is equal to async, and then in here in this function we're basically going to be like fetching the data. We do const response is equal to await. Remember async await. So they say on the fetch API you should be using async await in server component to fetch the data. So this is basically async await we're doing, and then you do the fetch, right? Now here we're gonna paste that random API in here, and boom, we have that. We are fetching the data, and let's see how it looks like. So data is equal to await response.json, and then we're just gonna return the data here. And yeah, we're fetching the data right now. So on this home function, we're gonna do is our home page. We're gonna do is a random dog is equal to await get dogs data, right? And we have to also make this an async await function. So let's do async in here. So we are getting some data, dog data in here, and let's make images in here. Let's see what it looks like first, right? So remember, this is a server component. So dog data is equal to random dog. No data in here. So server component, your console log will be in the server. So we have like a data, and the data look like a message. The message have the link to the picture, and status is success, which is good. So in here, we're gonna use the image component to get the image working. So in here, I'm gonna do src is equal to random dog dot message. I'm going to set the width to 300 and a height to 300, and alt would be random dog picture. Alright, cool. So let's go back in here. It look like we have some issues in here. We probably erased something by mistakes or somewhere in here. So this is not showing. This is okay. We have main. We have self-closing tag on the image. Okay, cool. So looks like it's not loading for some reason. Oh, I misspelled that right here. Okay, so we're gonna the Next.js is gonna throw an error because we don't have this link on our config, and we're gonna add that into the config right now. And go to config in here. So every time you fetch data from a different API, you need to make sure what images where you're fetching the data from. Like if you're doing an image mainly, you want to make sure Next.js know the URL you're grabbing the images from. So we are doing images.co, and that's the URL we're getting this from. So images.doc.co, and put that on the domain, and then we restart the server again. That's like a mandatory thing. So every time you have an image, you're grabbing some image from an API, you have to do this. Just by pasting the link. But yeah, that's out of the way. Let's refresh the page, and we should have a dog image. Now notice one thing. Every time I refresh, the images doesn't refresh, but it's a random image. It should be giving me a new dog right now. Like every time we fetch, it should be giving me a new dog. So why is that not happening? Now this is where the concept comes in, right? So this automatic deduping concept comes in. So what that means is every time you fetch a Next.js, or every time you fetch a data, Next.js will automatically cache the fetch request. So we're doing a fetch request. This is a get request. So it's automatically caching the requests that have the same input in temporary cache. This optimization prevents the same data from being fetched more than once. So that is basically what is happening, right? So every time you fetch the data, it should be giving a new dog, but it's not, because Next.js saw this and like, oh, okay, we're gonna cache this, and they're like, they cache the image. That's it. But we don't want that. We're like, hey, this is a random dog API. We want to have a random images pop up every time. So how do we do that? How we avoid it? But before I jump into that, I want to say this is a really good feature to have, because you don't want to fetch the data every time you load or something. Like Next.js temporary caches by default, which is a good thing. It kind of optimizes your application and makes your application a lot more faster. So it's a good thing. But for our purposes, we don't want that. So how do we avoid that? We just do this. We use the next feature, this is the next feature, by the way. So you can like do a cache and write no cache. That means you're telling Next.js that, hey, we don't want to use a temporary cache on this. Like, do not cache this API. Just do a fresh request every time you see this. So instead of caching, you should be always fetching this data. So right now, when I go here, refresh the page, you see we have new doc coming in, just like this, right? Which is good. So you learn something new, like Next.js kind of caches your data before you even tell anything, but you can do this. Now, that point out of the way, which is good, let's talk about the next point. Next.js extend fetch option object to allow each request to set its own caching and revalidating rule. Now, this is a really cool feature. I use this on my personal website. I'll show you in a bit, but just to go over this, instead of doing this, you can also tell Next.js like when to cache the data, like when you want to request it again. So you can do this by putting a timer like this. So you can like just copy paste this and paste it in here. So it's telling like, hey, Next.js, in our curly braces, next, revalidate every 10 seconds. So let's do 300 seconds and see if I refresh, same dog, right? If I refresh after 300 seconds, then it's going to get a new dog. Okay, let's do 15 seconds. Okay, so new dog coming in 15 seconds. 15 second passes, and then you will get a new dog after 15 second passes. So that's the idea of revalidating, right? So you get a new dog right now. So after 15 second passes, you get a new dog. So that's pretty cool because you wanna the data is going to get stale, and after 15 seconds it's going to refresh it again, which is a nice idea. Because I have my personal website here that I coded on Next.js, and I have a YouTube API. So every time people subscribe, every time you guys watch my video, every time I upload, this will automatically go up. So it's not a static data, right? So it kind of revalidates. It kind of refreshes the data every, I'm not sure. I probably put in some hours, but yeah, it refreshes it every random time, and which is really good because it helps me. I don't have to do anything. It just refreshes it once it's ready and the time passes, which is really nice. And in that concept, I'm gonna go into static and dynamic fetching data. So this is kind of like an extension of that. So there are two type of data, right? Like static data is data that doesn't change often. So you can just grab whatever you want and just static. You don't have to change anything. But dynamic data is like a YouTube data I just talked to you about. It's like subscriber will change, view count will change, and so we need to update the data. So you can like do this dynamic, you catch on request, and the static you catch all the time. So that way you kind of like play around with it. So with the dynamic data, you can do some kind of revalidating. With the static data, you can do like a no cache like we did before. So you have like you're playing with both. You're kind of like configuring how you fetch the data. And that is the cool part about Next.js. So that's a lot. I think I talked a lot. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. But those are a really good concept to learn, just a basic concept. And now I'm going to talk to about some data fetching in parallel. I think that's the next step, right? So fetch data in parallel. Like, what does that mean? Like how we take into that account on Indo. So the next topic is fetch data in parallel to minimize waterfall and reduce loading time. So this is a really cool concept as well. So in order to do that, we have to know how to do like a dynamic data fetching, like using dynamic routes. So I hope you guys have like a strong foundation of how to fetch data. You do like async, await, and then fetch the data, and then you await, made async, await, and then fetch the data on a function. You don't have to do it in the function. You can do everything right here as well, like But yeah, this is like a cleaner way to do it. So you guys understand the basics. Let's jump into the next part, which is we're going to create something called post in here. Post. And in the post, we're going to do a page.jsx. It's a mandatory post page. Okay, cool. We have a post page, and let's go into that page and see how it looks. The post page, we have that. Nice. Now what we do, we're gonna grab some post here. Let's go to another API called JSON placeholder, and here, this is a free API as well, fake API, and they have like a post and comment API. So every post have a comment. We are going to be doing the parallel. So we're gonna fetch data in parallel using this. We're gonna fetch the data on the post, fetch the data on the comment, and put them all together. So we're gonna be using this example to demonstrate the parallel fetching, which is really nice example as well. So let's do a post fetch in this, just to show you guys how we do the data and an exercise as well. So get post is equal to async again. And this is going to be a very straightforward fetching the post data from the JSON placeholder. So await, fetch, And let's get the URL here, copy the URL, paste the URL, and then to const data is equal to await response.json, and then we're going to return the data as well. Nice, great job. And here we're going to do async await as well. So const get all posts is equal to await get post, right? We have the post coming in. Let's console log this, see if it's working at all. Looks like we got a lot of posts in here. Nice, nice. And we're gonna do is we're gonna map through this post here. So get all posts dot map, and here we're gonna do is post, and then I like to do is return here as well. Nice. And then in here we're gonna do is we're gonna do a paragraph tag, and we're gonna do post.title, post.title, and let's see how it looks like. Do we get anything on our? We have all the posts. Nice. Now what I want to do is every time I click on any of this post, I want to go to that post page, a separate page that have only this post, right? So their own page. So how do we do that? How we fetch API on a dynamic route? So in here, what we do is we create a dynamic route like we always do on Next.js. So this is a dynamic route right now. So ID is basically means post/1. That's ID of 1. So every time we go onto the 1, we will only have posts from the first post, If we go to the 3, we're gonna get the 3 posts. Now how do we implement that? So let's go to the ID, and in the ID we're gonna create a page as well. And this is a mandatory page for Next.js. This is gonna be get single let's say single post. So every single post will be in here. And how we do that is we are going to be grabbing the params, and in the params we're going to call that ID. So every time we go to this route number 3, that will be the ID. So it's grabbing from the params. Params is basically everything after the post will be a params, and we're calling this the ID. So this is the ID. Nice. So we're grabbing the ID, and then we're gonna do is we're gonna do a fetch request as well. So const get single post equal to async and ID. We're gonna pass in the ID on this time, and this is how we're gonna get the dynamic post, by the way. So await fetch, and it's all in the JSON placeholder as well. So you see we go to the post. If you want to get a dynamic post like ID, you go to this and grab that. Now instead of 1, we're gonna grab the ID from here. So we're gonna pass that into this function. So how do we do that? We made this a string literal, and here we're gonna do is ID. So if you go to number 3, the ID will be number 3. So it's grabbing the post of number 3 only, and that's it. That's all we want. That's why we call this get single post. So const data is equal to await response JSON, same thing as always, and return the data. So here we're gonna do is go const get single post data is equal to await get single post, and we're gonna pass in the ID, and in here we need to make it async as well. So we have that going for us, and let's console log this, making sure single post data, get single post data, are we getting it? So there's a lot of posts in here. So here we go, let's go to number 1, and we are getting only ID of 1. That's the first post. Let's go to ID of 5. We're getting the number 5 post, which is really different than the first one. So you see we're getting that working, which is awesome. Now we need to do is kind of get single post data dot body. We just pasting that in here. So right now we have the dynamic post working. 1, 5, and we can go to 3, which is awesome. Now let's go to the back of the page. Now we want to do is once we click on this, we want to go to that specific post. Like if we click on number 5, we want to go to the 5 posts. So how do we do that? We create a link in here, which is coming from next link. Put that into the pack of titles, and in here we are going to be doing is href. We are going to be doing is href, and we're going to do a string little slash post slash post dot id. Now this post we are fetching already have an id in here. So they have id, they have what do you call it? They have a lot of information in there. ID, body, header, stuff like that. So we want the ID to, when we click on the ID, this is going to be the ID number 1, and we'll go to number 1 post. So it's kind of like linking to the number 1 post. And in that post, this appears, and we're grabbing the body on that post and we're putting it here. So post body in here. So that's good. I think it looks pretty good. Let's go number 5. We have the number 5 post body. It should say post body right now. And here, post body numbers, whatever number I picked in. So we go in, we click on here, that post body appear, which is awesome. We're doing dynamic fetching, dynamic routing, all in once. This will come in handy when we build a full stack application in the later tutorial. So also, in case you guys wondering, I have all this information. I know there was a lot of information taken. All these are nicely diagrammed and kind of, put together nicely in a free Next.js guide that I put together. It's a modern Next.js guide with all the handy things all in one place. I think just go to the link, grab the guide. It's totally free, and you will find all this information in one place. I think it will really help you if you're trying to interview for a Next.js job. You can like skim through the guide and have a like really clean understanding before the interview, things like that. So grab the guide and let's go back to the tutorial. So yeah, I think we have a good understanding of this, and we have everything working. Now we want to do here on the, where is it? So if we click on any of this, we want to also grab we're going to also fetch another API which is going to have comment for this single post. So every post have a different kind of comment in there, and we're going to grab the comment in here as well. So we are doing 2 fetching, right? Now Next.js have like a really optimized way of fetching in parallel to minimize waterfall and reducing loading time, and we're gonna do that. So how do we do that? Is basically we create 2 function, right? We have 2 function in here. Let's create another fetch in here. So get post comment. Now this is where things get really interesting, and I think Next.js kind of really did a great thing in here to kind of optimize in a more optimize in a greater fashion. So yeah. So we're gonna do fetch in here, and here we're gonna do comment fetch. Now, every post have an ID, and we're gonna use that post ID to grab the comment from that specific post. Now that's also on the JSON placeholder. So you see comment post ID 1. So only the first post comment will be fetched. So let's do that in here. So string little again, because we want to add that in here. We're gonna do ID in here. So cool, we have that working. Next we do is const data is equal to await response JSON, return data, like we always do in here. And in here we are also going to be bringing that comment fetch function. Get post comment data is equal to await get post comment, and we're gonna pass in the same ID, which is the post ID. So we have that 2 going, and now how we kind of like fetch those 2 data in parallel, so it kind of like optimize our double fetching. It also have we can also use some kind of like a suspense as well to kind of make things a little bit more user friendly, so user knows there's like some data fetching going on. So what we do is we create kind of like a use state if we use it on React. So we do like a post, we're grabbing the post, comment, we're grabbing the comment, post should be single. Then we're gonna do await promise dot all, and then we do square bracket again, and we pass in this function. We pass in the data function, and on comma we pass in the get post data function as well. So it's doing the fetching in parallel. And here how we do is, instead of this, we use the post.body. Post.body, and in here we're gonna do is comment situation. Like we're gonna have to grab all the comment, because comment is basically an array. So every time you grab a comment for on singular post, it's going to give you an array. So let's see, it's giving you an array, 5 items in the array. So we have to loop through that and show it over here. So let's do that in here. I'm going to do comment is equal to comment dot map, and comment here we do is p, not o, p in here. We're gonna do comment dot body. I think we missed like doing a key on the post, so you can also do key comment dot id. They have an ID on the comment, each one, so it's really cool. And we're gonna use some styling, padding y of 2. We also, let's do a comment in here, style in here, margin top of 5, so we know the separation, or maybe 12. So every post have all different kind of comments, and let's see how it's working. First, we go to the first post, all the comments, post body, all the comments, and the body. Now, what did we learn? We learned how to do parallel fetching. So we have two fetch. So we're grabbing the single post, we're grabbing the comment using the same ID. So post ID, we're grabbing the single post, the ID for post going in here as well, which is coming from the params, so 14, and it's grabbing the comment for the 14 number post, which is an array. And we are doing a parallel fetching in here using a promise, and it's doing the parallel fetching. But how do we optimize it? You can use the loading state, like before in the previous lesson I showed you guys how to do that. So we're gonna use that in here, just a simple loading. So now when I say do this, you see the loading appear. So it's kind of using the React suspense in the back as well, kind of give you that loading state behavior. So when user, because you're doing parallel fetching, it might take a little bit of time. If user have like a very slow internet, it's going to take a little bit of time. So you want to have some kind of loading state on this type of fetch. If we're doing parallel fetching, see the loading appears, and you get the data after that. You can also customize this as well, but yeah, this is how we do it. So fetching is pretty straightforward. And again, let's go back in here and see what. So we covered this. Fetch should be always on server component. We can do parallel fetching to kind of reduce loading time and the waterfall. For layout and pages, fetch data where it used. Next.js will automatically dedupe requests in a tree. So if you have like a tree-like structure, and if we fetch a data on like the parent, it will automatically cache the data on the children as well. So you kind of have that deduping in here, like in a tree, which is a cool feature as well. But you can also do no cache as well, like I showed you. Use loadings, UI, streaming, suspense, which we did over here. But you can also customize this using on the component itself. You can bring in a suspense from React and kind of implement that as well. But I think Next.js does a great job with the loading state, so I think I trust that better. So yeah, you can custom play around with that as well, style the loading state as well. And yeah, to progressively render a page, show result to user while the rest of the content load. So we covered all these 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you guys have like a very strong foundation of data fetching in Next.js. I know there was like a lot of stuff to talk about, and I'm really excited to go over to the next session and go in more details. Just so you know, before I leave you guys, there's also something called server action. We don't have any backend data right now, so we are not going to be able to show these things example. But server action basically does a great feature that comes with Next.js 13.4. So it does server-side mutation on the spot, so on the page itself. So when you're doing a form, you don't have to use state, grab all the state, and then you do a post request on the server. You can just do it right off the bat using use server, which is a server action. It will make a lot more sense, but I do have like a full stack application in Next.js on Next.js crash course, a full stack course. That course I use server action. I go in more depth in server action, and I actually show you how it is working behind the scene, how we are manipulating the data. So if you are curious about the server action, go ahead, check that tutorial. Until then, I think we cover good grounds on this. And next will be a little bit of styling optimization as well. So smash the like button, make sure you subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, share with your coworkers, help people learn about Next.js, and comment down below as well. It helped me, help people find this YouTube video, because I'm putting in a lot of hours to make sure I bring some quality content for you guys. And I know I did a lot of talking on this video. There were like a lot of stuff. Make sure you go back and watch some of this concept as well to actually get into the habit of doing this more often. So stay tuned. Make sure you turn on the notification, because I'll be dropping another video soon as well. And yeah, take care.